Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Stotra Srimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jadvaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। मायापुर धाम की जय। जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। संवेद भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौ प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. Glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. So we are continuing with Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, verse number 20. The chapter is entitled Departure of Lord Krishna for Dvaraka. Text 20. Anyonyam asita sanjalpa uttama shloka chetasam Kauravendra pura strinam sarva shruti manoharaha. Anyonyam asit sanjalpa uttama shloka chetasam Kauravendra pura strinam sarva shruti manoharaha. Anyonyam asit sanjalpa uttama shloka chetasam Kauravendra pura strinam sarva shruti manoharaha. Synonyms: Anyonyam, among each other. Asit, there was. Sanjalpaha, talking. Uttama Shloka, the Supreme, who is praised by selected poetry. Chetasam, of those whose hearts are absorbed in that way. Kauravendra, the king of the Kurus. Pura, capital. Strinam, all the ladies. Sarva, all. Shruti, the Vedas. Manaha haraha, attractive to the mind. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Absorbed in the thought of the transcendental qualities of the Lord, who is sung in select poetry, the ladies on the roofs of all the houses of Hastinapur began to talk of him. This talk was more attractive than the hymns of the Vedas. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that in all the Vedic literatures, the goal is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Factually, the glories of the Lord are depicted in such literature as the Vedas, Ramayana, and Mahabharata. And in the Bhagavatam, they are specifically mentioned in respect to the Supreme Lord. Therefore, while the ladies on the tops of the houses in the capital of the kings of the Kuru dynasty were talking about the Lord, their talk was more pleasing than the Vedic hymns. Anything sung in the praise of the Lord is Shruti Mantra. There are songs of Thakur Narottam Das, one of the acharyas in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, composed in simple Bengali language. But Thakur Vishwanath Chakravarti, another very learned acharya of the same Sampradaya, has approved the songs by Thakur Narottam Das to be as good as Vedic mantras. And this is so because of the subject matter. The language is immaterial. but the subject matter is important. The ladies, who were all absorbed in the thought and actions of the Lord, developed the consciousness of Vedic wisdom by the grace of the Lord. And therefore, although such ladies might not have been very learned scholars in Sanskrit or otherwise, still, whatever they spoke was more attractive than the Vedic hymns. The Vedic hymns in the Upanishads are sometimes indirectly directed to the Supreme Lord, but the talks of the ladies were directly spoken of the Lord, and thus they were more pleasing to the heart. The ladies' talks appear to be more valuable than the learned Brahmanas' benedictions. Translation once again. Absorbed in the thought of the transcendental qualities of the Lord, who is sung in select poetry, the ladies on the roofs of all the houses of Hastinapur began to talk of him. This talk was more attractive than the hymns of the Vedas. Om Agyana Thimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. This is such a beautiful verse, like any other verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I was looking for Srila Prabhupada's lecture on this verse, because that is the safest thing to do rather than try to, I like the easy way out. Sorry to say, but I like the easy way out. Just hear Srila Prabhupada or read his lecture, his transcription of his lecture, and, try to understand what is it. Sometimes the translation is very clear. The purport is not sometimes, always. Translation and purports are very clear. But sometimes it doesn't get into the brain. So need to get more proper understanding from Srila Prabhupada's lectures. So Srila Prabhupada talks about this verse, and he talks about Vedanta. Veda means knowledge, Anta means end. So in Vedanta, what does it mean? It means everything for our material life is in the Vedas. And Vedanta means the ultimate platform for acquiring knowledge. And we have heard from the Bhagavad Gita, the purpose of the Vedas is to know Krishna. Vedascha sarver aham eva vedyo Vedanta krit veda vid eva chaham. Krishna says, I am the compiler of the Vedas and I am to be known from the Vedas. So it should not be that one just talks about the Vedas, not just about the Vedas. No, one should talk about Krishna, his pastimes. Then it is considered that we are talking about the Vedas. Now, in this verse, we notice in the translation, there is a word called Uttama Shloka. Uttama means topmost or liberated or transcendental. And Shloka is the verse. So in other words, Krishna cannot be described with ordinary verses. It has to be poetic. It has to be the topmost. That's why it's called Uttama Shloka. Utta means crossed, Tama means ignorance. So Uttama means someone who's gone on the other side of ignorance or Tama. Right? There are three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So here, Krishna is being described as Uttama Shloka. Now talking about Tama, Uttama. Tama means ignorance. Prabhupada says this material world is a place of ignorance. That's why it's called the world of Tama or darkness or hell. In fact, Srila Prabhupada was once asked, he was in London and he was asked, what is your conception of hell? What did Srila Prabhupada say? This, London is a conception of hell. Like, oh, they were all like, what? He said, yes. Why is it hell? Because it's always dark, it's moist, it's drizzling, no sunshine, it's cloudy, it's misty, and simply big, big buildings. That's all. So we know that this material world is a place of ignorance. Why? Because most people are in the mode of ignorance. Most people do not know the value of human form of life. Human life is meant for Athato Brahma Jigyasa. We need to inquire, we need to become self-realized. That is very, very important. But most people do not know what is the value of human form of life. They just feel, oh, human form is just to eat, sleep, and be merry. No. Just eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Well, animals also do that. So what is the difference between us and the animals? Prabhupada says that we are just like animals if we do not inquire about who we really are. Why are we in this material world? Above all, why am I suffering? And the most important question should be, how can I break this cycle of misery and come out? So perfection of life is to inquire and try to understand Krishna. All of us who are exposed to Krishna consciousness, we are very, very fortunate people, very fortunate human beings. Bahunam Janmanam Anti, after many, many births, Jnanavan Mam Prapade, those who are in knowledge surrender unto Krishna. This is what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Jnanavan means someone who has the actual knowledge, not just this academic knowledge, no, who actually has the real knowledge. So Srila Prabhupada says there are two kinds of people, Jnanavan, and then the other one is Mayaya Aprita Jnana. Right? In the Bhagavad Gita 7th chapter, we have read, No mam dushkriti no murha prapadyante naradhama. Mayaya aprita jnanam asuram bhavam ashritaha. These are the four kinds of people, Krishna says, they do not surrender to Krishna. And one of them is Mayaya aprita jnanam. What does that mean? That their knowledge is stolen by illusion. They are in Maya. They don't want to surrender to Krishna. They don't know Krishna. They don't know anything. They just want to enjoy life. For how long? Right? For how long can one enjoy life? Gradually, one is going to grow old, and with old age comes so many issues, medical issues, can't see properly, don't have any teeth left, can't hear properly. There's so many, issues. Why? Even in young age, so many medical issues come up. So if the knowledge is stolen away by illusion, that means that person is acting on the platform of ignorance. And those who are actually working in the mode of ignorance, they are never satisfied. We will see that devotees, gradually, as they progress spiritually, they become satisfied. They are happy with whatever is, given to us by the Lord. We need to understand that whatever comes to us, whether it is happiness or distress, pleasure, pain, success, failure, whatever, it's our own doing. We are just reaping the fruits of our past karma. We are just getting what is our quota of karma. So one should be satisfied. But those who are in ignorance, they are not satisfied. There's a difference between need and greed. But to draw the line, the mind plays tricks. The mind will, it may be something I just want, but the mind is going to say, you need it. You cannot do without it. And then what do? We just blindly follow the mind. Okay, the mind is saying it's a need, so I should go ahead with it. Srila Prabhupada says that a person can, a hungry person can be satisfied, an angry person can be satisfied. Hungry, of course, you give food, they are satisfied. Angry, you pacify, they are satisfied. Thirsty people, give them water and they are satisfied. But greedy people can never be satisfied. But once we take on knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, we, hear from advanced devotees, we hear lectures, then we understand. And then we come to a stage where we are happy in all situations. There is no greed at all. And how does satisfaction come about? Satisfaction comes only when we have no expectations. If we expect that, okay, when I go into the temple, I expect everyone to look at me, smile at me, and say Hare Krishna. But that may not be so. And then what happens when expectations are not met? Then there is frustration and anger. If one is expecting I should earn X amount of money, or I want a particular kind of spouse, or I want a particular kind of job, and if all these are not accomplished, then there is anger and frustration. And we learned in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, where Krishna says that when the senses come in contact with sense objects, then there's attachment. I see a beautiful girl, a beautiful boy, I mean, not beautiful, but handsome boy, then there is attachment. Okay, I like this person, I want this person. And when that expectation is not met, then there is anger and frustration. And that's what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. When there is attachment, then there is that greed to get that. I need it. And when that is not satisfied, then there is anger. Anger leads to bewilderment of memory. Intelligence is lost, and then a person falls down. So best thing is, when we take on the knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, then we should come to a stage of consciousness where we do our best and leave the rest to Krishna. Let him decide what is good for me. Srila Prabhupada says, when we surrender to Krishna, then he takes over our lives. And that is the fear. How can I give the control of my life to someone else? But that's the Supreme Lord, Krishna. He'll always do what is best for us. So when we surrender, he takes over our lives. And then we have nothing to worry. Because whatever it is, Krishna knows what is best for me. If the Lord knows that, okay, taking away something from my life is going to be good for my spiritual life, then so be it. So this is how we can see that being in this material world, which is a place of tama or ignorance, how we can come to a stage of satisfaction. And knowledge can help us. When we take on the knowledge from the scriptures, then we can understand the purpose of human life. Purpose is self-realization, to understand. The first basic foundation of Bhagavad Gita is, I am not this body. How many times in a day do we remind ourselves, I am not this body? We forget after Bhagavatam class finished, the chapter is closed. Now let's go back to the material consciousness. No. This is a process given to us by Srila Prabhupada. Hear more and more and more. Everyday hearing, everyday reading, that is going to help us become self-realized. And then we will understand the human form of life is meant for spiritual advancement, for self-realization. Why should we hear every day? Because our memories are not so good. We have a tendency to forget. I'm pretty sure if I ask any of you, how did I start this class? What was the first sentence? Even I don't remember. I'll have to go back into my notes to see what was the first thing I said. That is a tendency of memory in Kali Yuga. We tend to forget. So we need to be reminded again and again, so that we do not forget. Now, Srila Prabhupada also said that, Coca-Cola is a very popular company. Everybody knows about Coke. Even little children, they are so addicted to Coke. I remember my sister's sons, 3 sons, would not eat breakfast, lunch, or dinner without Coke. That had to be there. Of course, that practice stopped after a while. After a while means after many years. But the point is Coke. Everybody knows. But why do they still advertise? On the billboards, you see Coke, please drink Coke, enjoy Coke, happiness, happiness, open happiness, right? Open happiness, like as if happiness is in the bottle of Coke. Why? To remind the forgetful people of Kali Yuga whose memory is so poor, to remind them again and again, please drink Coke, please drink Coke. You see? So why not us? We also need to be reminded about Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. That's why Srimad Bhagavatam class a day keeps Maya away, because it reminds us again and again, okay, what am I doing in this material world? Why am I suffering? What should I do to end this cycle of suffering? This is a reminder again and again. So we see from this verse also that the ladies, they are talking about Krishna. Who is Krishna? He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has transcendental qualities. And now we can see he's being glorified in a poetic way. The ladies on the roof, they're talking about Krishna. And this verse is saying that their talk was more attractive than the hymns of the Vedas. Can you imagine? And these ladies, they knew the purpose of all these Vedic hymns is what? To know Krishna, to glorify Krishna. And we can see Krishna, like Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, glories of Krishna can be found so many places in the Vedas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam. We can find the glories. Now, what is the purpose of hearing or reading glories of Krishna? So that we can understand who Krishna is, so that we can get attracted to him. His name Krishna itself means all attractive. But right now, we are wearing the glasses of Maya. I'm talking about myself, wearing the glasses of Maya. So what do we see? Maya. But we must put on the glasses of the Shastras. When we wear the glasses of Shastras, then we can clearly see who Krishna is. So here it's saying this verse that the talks about of these ladies about Krishna is more pleasing than the Vedic hymns. And his glorification is considered Shruti mantra or the Vedic mantra. And we see that the acharyas, when they glorify Krishna, their glorification is as good as the Vedic mantras. Why? Because it is about Krishna. Until and unless we hear about Krishna, how will we get attracted to him or build a relationship with him? For instance, if my mother says, it's time for you to get married, this is hypothetically because I'm already married. But if, my mother says, okay, I want you to get married to Mr. X, what will be my first question? What is his name? Where does he live? How much does he earn? Does he have a house? All the details. What does he look like? Show me a picture. Why? Because it's important to build a relationship, especially in arranged marriages, to build a relationship. It's important to have that knowledge. Similarly, to build a relationship with Krishna, we need to hear about him. Of course, we cannot say, I want to see Krishna to build a relationship. But of course, when we go to the temples, we can see Krishna. He's there with Radharani. So glorification is there to help us get attracted to Krishna. And it does not matter, Prabhupada says, it does not matter if in that glorification there are some grammatical mistakes, or if the language that is being used is not very flowery. On Valentine's Day, you can hear a lot of flowery words, while giving the red roses. You are this and you are that, or whatever. So here, glorification of Krishna, it doesn't matter if the words are not very flowery. It is the sentiment, it is the bhav of the devotee that matters. Krishna sees the devotion, just like he says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yome Bhaktya Prayachati. He says, if one offers me with love and devotion, a fruit, flower, leaf, or water, he says, I'll accept it. So the main ingredient is love and devotion. So similarly, when there is glorification of the Lord, it is the sentiment that is very important, the bhava. And as Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, he says that the ladies who were of Hastinapur, who were on the roofs of all the houses in Hastinapur, that means so many ladies were there. They were looking at Krishna, who was departing for Dvaraka. He was leaving Hastinapur and going to Dvaraka. So these ladies, they were totally absorbed in Krishna's thoughts. Their whole focus was on Krishna's pastimes. Now one may say, how is it possible for these ladies to glorify so nicely? Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna's mercy. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam. Buddhi comes from Krishna. Krishna gives the intelligence to someone who is sincerely trying to understand him. So by the mercy of Krishna, these ladies who were on the rooftops in Hastinapur, they were able to glorify Krishna very nicely. And just like the gopis in Vrindavan, these ladies, they were not learned, Sanskrit scholars or anything. They were not learned in the Vedas, they were not pandits or anything, no. But their language was attractive. How come? Because it was coming from the heart. Their sentiments of love and devotion. So when they were glorifying, it was very pleasing to Krishna. And this also happened because of the mercy of Krishna. That is why in this verse, it is clearly mentioned that what they were speaking was more attractive than the hymns of the Vedas. And Srila Prabhupada makes it very clear in the purport. He says, they were speaking directly about Krishna, not an indirect way. And that is why their talks were more valuable than the benedictions given by the Brahmanas. Just see the exalted position of these ladies. They were simple, simple ladies. What is that word, when the lady is at home and doesn't work? What is that word?
Housewife, mother?
Yes, housewife. Sometimes you're in loss of words, it just blank.
Yes,
out.
mother, no problem.
Yes, these ladies were housewives. They were not hi-fi ladies, going to the mall and doing some shopping and, with nice clutches and handbags and, going to, no, that doesn't mean that those who work are any less. It's a state of consciousness. One may be, the CEO of the company, very well dressed, but in consciousness, if that person is Krishna conscious, is thinking of Krishna all the time, then there's no difference between them and these housewives. But here there's a talk about these ladies who were on the rooftops. And their talks was more valuable than the benedictions given by the Brahmanas. That is the last sentence of this purport. So we can see that Srila Prabhupada, he's been so merciful to us, given us so many books. Why? To keep them on shelves as decorative pieces? Let them collect dust? No. So that we can read them, hear about them, and try to understand Krishna. The whole process is given to us. And once the devotee starts chanting attentively, then there's going to be attachment to Krishna. One time, Srila Prabhupada was asked, excuse me, Prabhupada, that time they called him Swamiji, what is the purpose of chanting? And guess what did Prabhupada say? More chanting. The purpose of chanting is more chanting so that we get the desire to chant more and more and more. What? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Similarly, what is the purpose of more hearing? More hearing, more and more hearing. That is the purpose. And what does the hearing do? It removes the anarthas from the heart. There is purification. There is removal of contamination. That is what happens. And when the contamination is removed, then there is automatic attachment to Krishna. And automatically there is detachment from Maya. This happens simultaneously. We don't need to try separately. You know, it is, I had once heard that one should check one's fever. Just like, you know, we have material fever. Like, for instance, I have fever for past 10 days. And what do? I put the thermometer in my mouth. And that's how I come to know, oh, okay, this is the temperature right now. That's common sense. If I'm feeling feverish, first thing is check with the thermometer. So why don't we check spiritual fever? We need to check our spiritual fever also. Just like when, you know, as soon as I came to know, okay, I'm getting fever for so many days, what is the next step? Go to the doctor. Spiritual fever, go to the spiritual master, because he is our thermometer. Advanced devotees are our thermometer for spiritual fever. Get it diagnosed. What is it? What is the problem? Why is the material fever there? Is there an infection? What's going on? And based on the diagnosis, take the medication. Similarly, for spiritual fever, it is very good if it goes up. Because if the spiritual fever is going up, that means the material fever is going down. That means material attachment is going down. There is detachment. So it's very important for devotees to be conscious of the spiritual fever. Is it going down or is it going up? Because until and unless we keep a tab on it, we will not be able to fix it. If we do not, if we are not conscious of our spiritual fever going down, how will we bring it up? Adau Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangha Bhajana Kriya. Sadhu Sangha, attachment to the devotees, association. Because when there is association of devotees, they help us to increase our spiritual fever, which is a good thing. And that is why Srila Prabhupada opened so many temples. Why? Just some big buildings? No, so that we can go there, we can associate with devotees, we can learn from advanced devotees, we can be friends with devotees on our level and be compassionate to those who are beginning Krishna consciousness. Of course, Prabhupada says Krishna consciousness begins when you come to the stage of bhava, which is a very high stage. But Krishna consciousness is very important for everyone. Srila Prabhupada says the heart should be filled with Krishna consciousness. It should be filled. And that is called Uttama Shloka Chetasam. And only human beings can understand this. Animals cannot understand. And the Vedas, they are perfect. And Vedic civilization is a perfect system. It leads us to self-realization. So we are very, very, very fortunate that Srila Prabhupada has given us Krishna consciousness. Just imagine what or where would we be if there was no Krishna consciousness? It's a scary thought. So in that sense, glorification of Srila Prabhupada is also very important. Only when we glorify our spiritual master, glorify Srila Prabhupada, glorify the parampara, only then we will be able to come to that level of glorifying Krishna. Of course, we cannot repay the debt to Srila Prabhupada for what he has given us, but at least we can try by doing what? By reading his books every day, scrutinizingly. And when we are reading, if we don't understand anything, then we take the help of an advanced devotee to understand. And when we are reading a particular verse or a particular purport and it seems very difficult to understand, then best thing is to hear Srila Prabhupada. I'll give you the example of last Saturday. So I was preparing for my Chaitanya Charitamrita class for Saturday morning, and we are still in Adi Leela, and I was reading the verses which just were going over my head. I couldn't even understand. There was so much knowledge about Srimati Radharani, and I thought maybe I should cancel the class, not give the class. Then a thought occurred to me, well, I have to speak about it the following Saturday anyway. So why cancel it? So what did I do? I researched on Google, the God, material God. Looked up on Google and I found a beautiful lecture by a sannyasi who was speaking to Russian devotees about these verses. And he explained it so beautifully, so nicely. All I had to do is repeat it. Simple as that. And in that process, there was some learning. Oh, this is what the verse means. This is how to explain it. Association of devotees is very, very important. So hearing every day, chanting attentively every day, reading Srila Prabhupada books every day, this is how we can bring our spiritual fever up, and gradually the material fever will go down. The verse once again, absorbed in the thought of the transcendental qualities of the Lord, who is sung in select poetry, the ladies on the roofs of all the houses of Hastinapur began to talk to him. This talk was more attractive than the hymns of the Vedas. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mother Gita, for such a wonderful class. Really, really nice points. Would like to ask devotees have any questions, any comments, any clarification, please do either raise your hand or you can just jump right in if I can catch you on this list of participants here. Mother, I have a question as you were speaking. And when you were mentioning, I've had 2 or 3 questions, but I'll ask my first one. When you were speaking about you having fever for 10 days, which I had no idea, but at the same time, when you were sharing that, you were attending the classes, as best as you can without fail. What's the word? Mind over matter, as they say. And was such an inspiration, even more and more and more for me.
What does that mean, what you said just now?
Mind over matter, like you just...
Oh, mind over matter. Okay.
Yeah, right? Okay. And as devotees, when we start to get into our body, we allow our mind to tell us, no, sit home, right? Because we are so connected with our body. That's what I'm guessing. So from your example, Mother, how can we really do the mind over matter? Because Maya is so strong to say, yes, you got fever, but it's not like you're going to die. Just go to the temple. Like, how can we really get that the way you were able to do it for 10 days, Mother?
Best thing is I get darshan of my spiritual master every day on WhatsApp message with his realizations and all, and him doing Mangal Aarti and everything. And then when I think about that okay, at that age of 77 years, almost 78 years, and having a lot of medical, I wouldn't say issues, but so, and still and he's giving darshan till almost 10 or 11 in the night, and still he's up there at the altar at 4 in the morning, and reminding myself of his instructions that especially the initiated devotees should finish their chanting in the mornings. And if we don't get up, and he also insists on doing Mangalarti at 4:30 in the morning. So if we don't follow the instructions of the spiritual master seriously, and also even watching him follow his own instructions, right? So then it would be very shameful if we let the mind rule over the body, because if the body is going to rest for extra 1 or 2 hours, it's not going to make a difference. It's not going to make a difference. Sometimes the medication from the doctor also doesn't really make a difference, but we still go and we take it because, as you know, just to try. So this is what I keep in mind are his instructions and his personal example.
Thank you, Mother. Thank you so much. Yeah, definitely. And because our minds, at least my mind, is so always whipped that we always need someone, our spiritual master, senior devotee, Prabhupada, to kick us in our heads. Thank you, Mother.
Yeah.
Yes, dear Krishna, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Mother. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Really beautiful class. Very, very nice points. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So you were very nicely explaining about the material fever and spiritual fever. So is there a need to measure, like we measure our material fever, how much fever I have? Is it at all possible? If it is possible, then probably we can give effective medicine to ourselves. Of course, the choice is still mine, whether I want to take that medicine or not. So maybe, I'm not sure my question is clear or not, but maybe you can throw some light on that, Mother.
Yes, absolutely. So there are different steps. The first thing is to recognize if my spiritual fever is high enough or not. Step number 2 is to accept it. Yes, my spiritual fever is not where it should be. And then the final step is to get the fever checked, the spiritual fever checked. How? By, if possible, through the spiritual master. If it's not possible to, have any communication for whatever reason, then approach advanced devotees. And their first question will be, they will want to know, what exactly do you do throughout the day? How many hours of reading that you do of Srila Prabhupada's books? What time do you chant? How long does it take for you to chant one round? Is it 5 minutes? Then spiritual fever will never go up because it's too fast. So these are some of the questions that those advanced devotees or spiritual master would want to know. And based on that, they will be able to tell us, what is our spiritual fever, and then also give us medication, which means their instructions, how we can help to increase that fever. I hope that helps.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mother, let me ask someone else before I jump in. Is there any other questions from devotees?
Is it possible for you to remove the verse?
Yes, Mother, sure.
Yeah.
No problem. I can do that. There we go.
Thank you.
Mother, yes, go ahead. Krishna Sharan Prabhu, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hare Krishna Mataji, it's of course, it's a
Hare
beautiful
Krishna.
lot of information. The lady's talk was more pleasing and more attractive than the Vedas. But Vedas are given by Krishna. So he's the one who authored, who gave the Vedas. So I was wondering why they are, put on the lower level than the lady's talk.
Yes, very nice question. It's not put on the lower level, but it is just to make us understand that just knowing the Vedas or being able to recite them or know those Sanskrit verses and all is not sufficient. The sentiment is very important. The bhava is very important. So even if a person, just to make us understand that it is not necessary to know the Vedas completely, or it's not necessary to be able to memorize the Sanskrit verses. Srila Prabhupada says just the translation in English is sufficient. Just the reference while preaching to others is sufficient to, quote, say, okay, chapter 2, verse 14 is Matra Sparshas, this is what it is. But here, the talk of the ladies, they are like fully Krishna conscious. And the comparison that is given to us is that it is the power, it is a sentiment that is very, very important. So knowing, it's not putting down the Vedas. Sanskrit verses are good. Vedas, yes, it's there for us to understand. But the purpose of understanding is to know Krishna, to be able to glorify Krishna. That is the purpose of the Vedas. So here we can see that the ladies, they are so advanced spiritually. They are fully Krishna conscious that even though they haven't learned the Vedas or whatever, they are still able to glorify Krishna to Krishna's full satisfaction. So that is the only difference you can see. So it's the bhava or the sentiment or the love for Krishna, which should be the result of studying the Vedas. In fact, I remember it was, I think, in Radha Desh, there was this Mataji giving a lecture, and she said that, those pujaris who are on the altar, they can't really be part of the Bhagavatam class, because when the Bhagavatam class is going on, they are doing worship, the curtains are closed for some time. So she was saying that those pujaris on the altar, they may not know the Vedas. They are just serving the deities, doing the deity worship out of love. They already know the Vedas. It's as good as they have studied all the Vedas, you see? So it's a matter of consciousness. So Vedas are there for us so that we can understand Krishna, because when we read Bhagavad Gita verses, when we read Srimad Bhagavatam verses, they make us understand, they give us knowledge so that we can get more attracted to Krishna. So it's not to put down the Vedas. Is that okay?
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna. Of course, any talk, any discussion about Krishna is always pleasing and attractive, and we never get bored like Coca-Cola. I mean, anybody talks, we keep listening so many times, even though we know the stories and everything, but we never get tired. It's always pleasing and attractive.
Yes, that is true. Yes. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Since you mentioned Coca-Cola again, I would like to give a small story that I had heard. And this is basically for us to understand how to preach, Desha Kala Patra, according to time, place, and circumstance. So Coca-Cola had come up with a new advertisement on a billboard. So it showed on the left side of the billboard, unhappy. Then in the center, drink Coca-Cola. And towards the right, it was happy, with a big happy face. So if you're unhappy, you drink Coca-Cola and you become happy. And that increased their sales so much. People were like, oh, now we found a source of happiness. Drink Coca-Cola and be happy. So Coca-Cola, I don't know if it's true, but this is what I heard. I hope no one from Coca-Cola is listening. Anyway, so then they decided, let us use the same theory in the Middle East country. So they put up the board over there. Same board, but the sales went down. Why? Because in Middle East, they read from right to left. You are happy, drink Coca-Cola, you'll be unhappy. And that's the reason they say. So we have to use our brains, how to preach according to time, place, and circumstance. So just by the way.
That was an amazing example of Desha Kalapatra, Mataji. Perfect example.
So all we have to do is replace the Coca-Cola bottle in the middle by Krishna, And happy and unhappy, keep them. So, when you are unhappy, think of Krishna and you will become happy.
Yes, and we can put a bead bag also in the center.
Yeah.
Chant and be happy. Yes. Thank you, Prabhu.
That was a really nice one, Mother. And when you were speaking, it reminded me of one of the Mahaprabhu's, communication courses, that he always says that we have to change with the changing times.
Yes.
And what is in one country is not the same in another country. Actually, what I've realized, Mother, is that also, being in Pennsylvania, and we used to live in Gitanagari for 21 years, just an hour difference from Gitanagari to where we are in Mechanicsburg, people talk differently. They think differently, just within a 1 hour drive span, it's so different mentality. But yes, there, Krishna, please go ahead.
Mataji, one more question. So in this purport, we see that the ladies in Hastinapur, they were not knowledgeable in Vedic literature or any such text. So, and Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that it was just by the grace of the Lord they got this wisdom. So, how to attract that grace? Is chanting enough, or what else? Because only I and Krishna know the quality of my chanting. So, how to attract that kind of grace, or even a fraction of that grace?
Yes, when you said only Krishna and I know the quality of chanting, thank God for that. If everybody knew how everyone is chanting, there would be chaos. Yes, long time ago I had heard that as soon as a devotee is able to satisfy the spiritual master, everything else falls in place. And how do we satisfy the spiritual master so that he's happy with our spiritual life? Let's follow his instructions. Just like Srila Prabhupada said, if one is chanting 16 rounds every day and following 4 regulative principles without fail, will be able to go back to Godhead. But then there are specific instructions for that. Like, for instance, those who chant 16 rounds, but it should be attentively, you see. So the spiritual master guides us that it should be attentively. And, so if we take to our hearts the instructions of our spiritual master, then we will be able to satisfy him. And Krishna says, once the guru is satisfied, I'm totally satisfied. So that's the easiest way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mother.
Thank you.
Mother Gita, I would like to ask a question piggybacking on the Krishna's previous question. When you said recognize, accept, and get checked in terms of spiritual fever. As Kali Yuga is progressing, Mother, the mind is always becoming more of an enemy than a friend, unfortunately, that sometimes we have a very difficult time recognizing and accepting. Is like, like, who are you to tell me that I'm not blah blah blah, whatever. Like, it's and to my limited knowledge, I think it's the false ego that's doing that. So how can we even, so it appears to be that the false ego has to be checked first to accept it before the spiritual fever. So how can we recognize and accept, because that is the biggest challenge for people in general, to say, I'm fine, when you're like, no, you're not.
I'm not in Maya.
Yeah, I'm perfect.
Yes. So I'll again give the same example that I always give, that if I'm not following the traffic rules, best thing is to have a cop sit next to me in the car. Once the cop is sitting next to me, there is no way I'm going to break the traffic rules. I'm not going to speed, I'll be in the speed limit, etc., etc. So same thing is if we keep association of advanced devotees or even devotees, then we are more careful, right? Just like if Srila Prabhupada walked into our house right now, what would he see? Would he see magazines lying around? Would he see the TV on? What would Srila Prabhupada see us doing? So to be conscious of that, that anytime any devotee can walk into the house. It would be nice if advanced devotees just, rang the bell and walked in to check us, what are we doing? So if we keep association of advanced devotees, I know it's difficult during COVID times, to have personal, but we are, gradually opening up to that too. But at least talk on the phone and reveal our minds. That's what Rupa Goswami says. One of the 6 things to do is to reveal our mind. I'm struggling with my rounds. I'm unable to wake up in the morning. What should I do? I'm not getting time to read. And when I'm reading, it's going over my head. So many questions are there. So if we take guidance from advanced devotees, you should ask Balbhadra Prabhu how many times I call him. So we should just keep, in touch. Of course, when we reach Srila Prabhupada's books, we are associating with him directly. So keeping in touch with advanced devotees, associating with them will help us. And then that association will rub off on us. And then gradually the false ego will start going down. And then we will become, we will accept whatever, So it's a gradual process, change in consciousness. So it's just that we have to keep trying. And when Krishna sees our efforts, our sincere endeavors, then he gives us a push. Then he helps us. But the first step has to come from us to accept, yes, my spiritual fever is still low. Secondly, look for guidance. Okay, who can I talk to? Who can help me? Whom I can explain without any reservations? Sometimes when we talk to devotees, we are only talking on top, the cherry on the cake. We're not talking about what's inside, So everything has to come out and say, okay, these are the desires that I have, and this is what I'm struggling with, etc., etc., so that the devotee can get a complete idea of what's going on. Just like when we go to spiritual master, we open our hearts. Even if we don't, he knows it because he's Tattvadarshina. But still, we can express by emails or phone calls or personal association, whatever. So similarly, we can do that with advanced devotees also. So that can help us. Sorry for the long answer.
No, Mother, perfect. Because I was going to ask one more to this question is, what is the danger of one not having a senior devotee or a confidant or someone that they can reveal that I'm having this challenge? Because sometimes devotees hide it. Because I was listening to a very short lecture by Mother Nitai Sevini from Vivishakhapatnam, and yesterday's class too by one of our local devotee, Naveen Shaman, that out of the 6 living exchanges, the toughest that devotees just can't do is revealing one's mind in confidence and inquiring submissively, because they think it's a whole ego thing, So what is the danger if one does not really do that, Mother? And they always think, no, I'm fine.
Yeah, the danger is then there'll be no advancement really, or maybe advancement will be very, very slow. So before revealing our minds, we need to have a certain level of relationship with that devotee. There should be a trust factor, because whatever is revealed, the innermost, what I wouldn't say realizations or innermost concerns or struggles or obstacles, when they are revealed to the advanced devotee should keep it confidential. It's not that you go around and say, oh, this one so is like that. No. So there has to be a trust factor that, which is built over the period of time, that, okay, I know that when I reveal my mind to this devotee, it's not going to go anywhere, but I'll get help instead. So that trust factor is also important.
Thank you so much, Mother.
Thank you.
Any other questions from devotees? Such a wonderful, amazing class. Really, really good topics. I think this class can go on for longer. Any questions? If there isn't, quick reminder, please do join us this evening for our Bhagavad Gita Circle reading program at 6 o'clock. We're still in the chapter 5. which is a Karma Yoga Action in Krishna Consciousness. To please do join us 6 o'clock to hear the Bhagavad Gita reading circle. Until then, thank you so much for a wonderful class, Mother Gita. Thank you to all the devotees for joining us. Vansha kapatubhyascha kripasindhubevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mother. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.